Erev Tov, everyone. Erev Tov. It is Monday night. It is 8 p.m. here on the east side of the United States, here in the diaspora. This is the Maimon Beit Knesset, therefore it must be Zeyde's Story Corner. That's right, Zeyde's Story Corner. Okay. We start a new book tonight. Yes, we do. Yeah. We start, actually, it's one that we actually read a few years ago. But we're going to read it again. And it's good stories. Yeah, very good stories. They are called Jewish Fairy Tales and by Aunt Naomi. So let's see who we have in the chat room. We have Donald. We have Regina. We have Simcha and Marshall. Oh, Marilyn is with us. Good to see you, Marilyn. Yeah. Okay, so, and there's a few watching in the background too. So, new book tonight. Well, not new. Yeah, that's true. It is not actually new. It's something that we've had in our library for quite a while, and we read it, like I said, a number of years, a few years ago at least. And we're going to reread them because they are actually really good stories. So let's get to it. Yeah, okay. Hello. Let's get to it then, the man says. So let's go here, and then we'll put you on, and there we are. We are ready to go now. Okay. So those of you who've been with us for a long time may actually recognize some of these stories, but it's been quite a while. So let's see. So this first story is called The Palace of Eagles. East of the land of the rising sun, there dwelled a king who spent all of his days and half of his nights in pleasure. His kingdom was on the edge of the world, according to the knowledge of those times, and almost entirely surrounded by the sea. Nobody seemed to care what lay beyond the barrier of rocks that shut off the land from the rest of the world. For the matter of that, nobody appeared to trouble much about anything in the kingdom at all. Most of the people followed the example of the king and led idle, careless lives, giving no thought to the future. The king regarded the task of governing his subjects as a big nuisance. He did not care to be worried with proposals concerning the welfare of the masses and documents brought to him by his advisors for signature that were never read. For aught he knew, they had been referred to as school regulations of the moon instead of the laws of trading and such like public matters. "Don't bother me," was his usual remark. "You are my advisors and officials of state. Deal with the affairs as you think best." And off he would go on his beloved hunting, which was his favorite pastime. The land was fertile, and nobody ever entertained the idea that bad weather might some year affect the crops and cause a scarcity of grain. They took no precautions to lay in stocks of wheat, and so when, one summer, there was a great lack of rain, and the fields were parched, the winter that followed was marked by suffering. The king was faced by famine, and the people did not like it. Imagine that. They didn't like it. Yeah, how about that? And they did not know what to do. And when they appealed to the king, he could not help them. Indeed, he could not understand the difficulty. He passed it off very lightly. I am a mighty hunter, he said. I can always kill enough beasts to provide a sufficiency of food. But the drought had withered away the grass and the trees, and the shortage was of such food had greatly reduced the number of animals. The king found the forest empty of deer and birds. Still, he failed to realize the gravity of the situation, and when what he considered an exceedingly bright idea struck him. Oh boy, this ought to be good. Yeah, should be. I will explore the unknown territory beyond the barrier of rocky hills, he said. Surely there I will find a land of plenty. And at least, he added, it will be a pleasant adventure with some good hunting. A great expedition was therefore arranged, and the king and his hunting companions set forth to find a path over the rocks. This was not at all difficult, and on the third day a pass was discovered among the crags and peaks that formed the summit of the barrier, and the king saw the region beyond. It seemed a vast and beautiful land, stretching away as far as the eye could see in a forest of huge trees. Carefully, the hunters descended the other side of the rock barrier and entered the unknown land. It seemed uninhabited, nor was there any sign of beast or bird of any kind. No sound disturbed the stillness of the forest. No tracks were visible. As well as the hunters could make out, no foot had ever trodden the region. Even nature seemed at rest. The trees were all old, their trunks gnarled into fantastic shapes, their leaves yellow and serene as if growth had stopped ages ago. Altogether, the march through the forest was rather eerie, and the hunters proceeded in single file, which added to the impressiveness of the strange experience. The novelty, however, made it pleasant to the king, and he kept on his way for 4 days. Then the forest ended abruptly, and the explorers came to a vast plain, a desert, through which a wide river flowed. Far beyond rose a mountain capped by rocks of regular shape. At any rate, they appeared to be rocks, but the distance was too great to enable anyone to speak with certainty. Water, said the vizier, is a sign of life. So the king decided to continue as far as the mountain. A ford was discovered in the river, and once on the other side it was possible to make out the rocks crowning the mountain. They looked too regular to be mere rocks, And on approaching nearer, the king was sure that a huge building must be on top of the mountain. When they arrived quite close, there was no doubt about it. Either a town or a palace stood on the summit. And it was decided to make the ascent the next day. During the night, no sound was heard, but to everybody's surprise, a distinct path up the mountain was noticed in the morning. It was overgrown with weeds and moss and straggling creepers that it was obvious it had not been used for a long time. The ascent was accordingly difficult, but halfway up, the first sign of life, noticed since the expedition began, made itself visible. It was an eagle. Suddenly it flew down from the mountain top and circled above the hunters, screaming, but making no attempt to attack. At length the summit was gained. It was a flat plateau of great expanse, almost the whole of which was covered by an enormous building of massive walls and stupendous towers. "This is the place of a great monarch," said the king. But no entrance of any kind could be seen. The rest of the day was spent in wandering around, but nowhere was a door or a window or an opening visible. It was decided to make a more serious effort next morning to gain entry. However, it seemed a great puzzle than ever. At length, one of the most venturesome of the party discovered an eagle's nest on one of the smaller towers, and with great difficulty he secured the bird and brought it down to the king. His Majesty bade one of his wise men, Muflog. Muflog? That's what it says. It says Muflog. Okay, let's not dwell on it. That is a very strange name. Yeah, it's not one of those common. Yeah, you don't hear mothers calling for their kids in the evening going, Muflog, come in, the streetlights are on. Yeah, that's true. You probably don't hear that name very often. I know, right? Okay, well, why don't we just go on and see what happens with Muflog? Okay, let's do that. Okay. Muflog. Hey. Learned in bird languages to speak to it. So he did. In a harsh, croaking voice, the eagle replied, "I am but a young bird, only 7 centuries old. I know not. On a tower higher than the one on which I dwell is the area of my father. He may be able to give you information." More he would not say. The only thing to do was to climb the higher tower and question the father eagle. This was done. And the bird answered, "On a tower still higher dwells my father, and on yet a higher tower my grandfather, who is 2,000 years old. He may know something. I know nothing. After considerable difficulty, the topmost tower was reached, and the venerable bird discovered. He seemed asleep, and was only awakened after much coaxing. Sounds like you. Hey, wait a minute. I mean, yeah, you got to be poked sometime to get. I know, but hey, I'm old. I got an excuse, and besides, I don't care. Okay, let's go on. So let's see. He was poking him, right? Yeah, that's where he was poking him. Yeah. Okay, after much coaxing, and then he surveyed the humans warily. Let me see. Let me think, he muttered slowly. I did hear when I was a tiny eagle chick, but a few years old. That was long ago. That my great-grandfather had said that his great-grandfather had told him that he had heard that long, long ago, oh, ever so much longer than that, a king lived in this palace, that he died and left it to the eagles, and that is the course of many, many, many thousands of years. The door has been covered up by the dust brought by the winds. Where is the door? Asked Muflog. Well, I just can't get over that now. Okay, that's the story. Let's just read the story. I don't know. Muflog. Muflog. Come in, it's time to eat dinner, Muflog. Okay, anyway, back to the story. That was a puzzle the ancient bird could not answer readily. He thought and fell asleep, and had to be kept being awakened until at last he remembered. When the sun shines in the morning, he croaked, its first rays fall on the door. Then, worn out with all his talking and thinking, he fell asleep again. There was no rest for the party that night. They all watched to make certain of seeing the first rays of the rising sun strike the palace. When it did so, the spot was carefully noted, but no door could be seen. Digging was therefore begun, and after many hours, an opening was found. Through this, an entrance was effected into the palace. What a wonderful and mysterious palace it was, all overgrown with the weeds of centuries. Tangled masses of creepers lay everywhere. Over what were once trimly kept pathways, and almost completely hidden the lower building. In the crevices of the walls, roots had insinuated themselves, and by their growth had forced the stones apart. It was all a terrible scene of desolation. The king's men had to hack a way laboriously through the wilderness of weeds with their swords to the central building. And when they did so, they came to a door on which was an inscription cut deep into the wood. The language was unknown to all but Muflog, who deciphered it as follows: We, the dwellers of this palace, lived for many years in comfort and luxury. Then hunger came. We had made no preparation. We had amassed jewels in abundance, but not corn. We ground pearls and rubies into fine flour, but could make no bread. Therefore, we died, bequeathing this palace to the eagles who will devour our bodies and build their eyries in our towers. A dread silence fell on the whole party when Muflog read these strange words, and the king turned pale. This warning from the dead past was making the adventure far from enjoyable. Some of the party suggested that an immediate abandonment of their expedition and the prompt return home. They feared hidden dangers now, but the king remained resolute. I must investigate this to the end, he said in a firm voice. Those who are seized by fear may return. I will go on, if needs be, alone. Encouraged by these words, the hunters decided to remain with the king. One of them began to batter at the door, but the king was anxious to preserve the inscription. And after more cutting away of weeds, the key was seen to be sticking out of the keyhole. Unlocking the door, however, was no light task, for ages of rust accumulated. When finally this was accomplished, the door creaked heavily on its hinges, and a musty smell came from the dark corridor that was revealed. The explorers walked ankle-deep in dust through a maze of rooms until they came to a big central hall of statues. So artistically fashioned were they that they seemed lifelike in their attributes. And for a moment, all held their breath. This hall was dustless. And Muflog pointed out that it was an airtight chamber. Evidently, it had been specifically devised to preserve the statues. These must be the effigies of kings, said His Majesty, and on reading the inscriptions, Muflog said that it was so. At the far end of the hall, on a pedestal higher than the others, was a statue bigger than the rest. In addition to the name, there was an inscription on the pedestal. Muflog read it amid an awed stillness. I am the last of the kings, yea, the last of men, and with my own hands have completed this work. I ruled over 1,000 cities, rode on 1,000 horses, and received the homage of 1,000 vassal princes. But when famine came, I was powerless. Ye who may read this, take heed of the fate that has overwhelmed this land. Take but one word of counsel from the last of the mortals. Prepare thy meal while the daylight lasts. The words broke off. The rest was undecipherable. Enough, cried the king, and his voice was not steady. This has indeed been good hunting. I have learned, in my folly and pursuit of pleasures, what I had failed to see for myself. Let us return and act upon the counsel of this king who has met the end that will surely be our own should we forget his warning. Looking out across the plain they had traveled, His Majesty seemed to see a vision of prosperous cities and smiling fertile fields. In imagination he saw caravans laden with merchandise journeying across the intervening spaces. Then, as darker thoughts followed, a cloud appeared to settle over the whole land. The cities crumbled and disappeared. The eagle swooped down and took possession of that which man had failed to appreciate and hold. And after the eagles, the dust of the ages settled slowly, piling itself up year by year until everything was covered and only the desert was visible. Scarcely a word was spoken as the king and his hunters made their way back to the land east of the rising sun. In all, they had been away 40 days when they recrossed the barrier of rocks. They were joyously welcomed. "What have you brought?" asked the populace. "In a little while we shall be starving." "Ye shall not starve," said the king. "I have brought wisdom from the palace of the eagles. From the fate and suffering of others I have learned a lesson, my duty." At once he set to work organizing the proper distribution of food supply and the cultivation of the land. He wasted no more time on foolish pleasures, and in due course the land east of the rising sun enjoyed happiness and prosperity, and even established fruitful colonies in the plains overlooked by the palace of the eagles. And there you have it. That is our first story for tonight. What do you think? How was that? Okay. So we are about halfway through our time, so we're going to take our break, and when we come back, we are going to read our next story, which is called The Giant of the Flood. Ooh, this is a good one. Okay, so let's take our break, and we will be back in 6. Please stay tuned.
Let's all go to the lobby. Let's all go to the lobby. Let's all go to the lobby to get ourselves a treat.
Delicious things to eat.
The popcorn can't be beat. The sparkling drinks are just dandy. The chocolate bars and the candy. So let's all go to the lobby to get ourselves a treat. Let's all go to the lobby to get ourselves a treat.
It's intermission time, folks, so hurry, hurry, hurry. Step right over to our refreshment center for the most extravagant array of refreshment goodies ever assembled under one roof. Enjoy breathtaking, mouth-watering goodies, everything from a snack to a delicious full meal. At our refreshment center, you'll find a large variety of goodies to satisfy your hunger, your thirst, or your sweet tooth. So hurry, hurry, hurry. Visit our refreshment center now. The show starts in 5 minutes. The show starts in 4 minutes. The show starts in 3 minutes. The show starts in 2 minutes. The show starts in 1 minute. And now, on with the show.
Muflog. M-U-F-L-O-G. There you go. Mommy, how did I get the name Muflog? Well, I tell you, son, when you were born, I asked your father what we should name you, and he slipped on the floor and went down, and it made the sound Muflog. And that's how you got the name, which makes about as much sense as anything else. Okay, so There we go. Now you know. Okay. Let's get back to the story, huh? Muflog. Oh, my goodness. That's almost as bad as the boy they named Goat in the other story, right? Who names the boy Goat? Okay, anyway. Who names a boy Muflog? Okay, anyway. So, obviously, he was a pretty smart guy, though. Okay. This story is called The Giant of the Flood. I wonder who that could be. Okay, let's find out, shall we? Just before the world was drowned, all the animals gathered in front of the ark of Father Noah. Noah carefully inspected them. All ye that lie down shall enter and be saved from the deluge that is about to destroy the world, he said. Ye that stand cannot enter. Then the various creatures began to march forward into the ark. Father Noah watched them closely. He seemed troubled. I wonder, he said to himself, how shall I obtain a unicorn? And how shall I get it into the ark? I can bring thee a unicorn, Father Noah. He heard a voice of thunder, and turning around, he saw the giant Og. But thou must agree to save me too from the flood. Begone, cried Noah. Thou art a demon, not a human being. I can have no dealings with thee. Pity me, whined the giant. See how my figure is shrinking. Once I was so tall I could drink water from the clouds and toss fish at the sun. I fear not that I shall be drowned, but that all the food will be destroyed, and that I shall perish of hunger. Noah, however, only smiled. But he grew serious again when Og brought the unicorn. It was as big as a mountain. Now, this is not some little cute little pony. Unicorns were huge creatures. Okay, it was as big as a mountain. Although the giant said that it was the smallest he could find. It lay down in front of the ark, and Noah saw by that action that he must save it. Obviously, he had to save it for the Mishkan, right? Okay, anyway. For some time, he was puzzled what to do, but at last a bright idea struck him. He attached the huge beast to the ark by a rope fastened to its horn, so that it could swim alongside and be fed. Og seated himself on a mountain near at hand and watched the rain pouring down. Faster and faster it fell in torrents until the rivers overflowed and the waters began to rise rapidly on the land and swept away everything. Father Noah stood gloomily before the door of the ark until the waters reached his neck. Then it swept him inside. The door closed with a bang, and the ark rose gallantly on the flood and began to move along. The unicorn swam alongside as it passed Og. The giant jumped onto his back. See, Father Noah, he cried with a huge chuckle. You'll have to save me after all. I will snatch all the food you put through the window for the unicorn. Noah saw that it was useless to argue with Og, who might indeed sink the ark with his tremendous strength. I will make a bargain with thee, he shouted from the window. I will feed thee, but thou must promise to be a servant to my descendants. Og was very hungry, so he accepted the conditions and devoured his first breakfast. The rain continued to fall in great sheets that shut out the light of day. Inside the ark, however, all was bright and cheerful, for Noach had collected the most precious of the stones of the earth and used them for the windows. Their radiance illuminated the whole of the inside, the 3 stories of the ark. Some of the animals were troublesome, and Noach got no sleep at all. The lion had... Wait a minute. What are we picking on the lion for in this story, huh? My goodness. The lion had a bad attack of fever. Oh, my goodness, poor lion. In a corner, a bird slept the whole of the time. This was the phoenix. Wake up, said Noah one day. It is feeding time. Thank you, replied the bird. I saw thou wert busy, Father Noach, so I would not trouble thee. Thou art a good bird, said Noach, much touched. Therefore, thou shalt never die. One day the rain ceased. The clouds rolled away, and the sun shone brilliantly again. How strange the world looked! It was like a vast ocean. Nothing but water could be seen anywhere, and only 1 or 2 of the highest mountain top peaked above the flood. All the world was drowned. Noah gazed on the desolate scene from one of the windows with tears in his eyes. Og, riding gaily on the unicorn behind the ark, was quite happy. Ha ha, he laughed gleefully. I shall be able to eat and drink just as much as I like now, and shall never be troubled by those tiny little creatures, the mortals. Be not so sure, said Noach. Those tiny mortals shall be thy master, and shall outlive thee and the whole race of giants and demons. The giant did not relish this prospect. He knew that whatever Noach prophesied would come true, and he was so sad that he ate no food for 2 days and began to grow smaller and thinner. He became, wasn't that a Stephen King? Yes, that was a Stephen King book, Thinner. Yes, but I don't think this was the same person in the, well, I know that. Anyway. Okay, let's see where we at. Okay, so he became more and more unhappy as day by day the waters subsided and the mountains began to appear. At last, the ark rested on Mount Ararat, and Og's long ride came to an end. I will soon leave thee, Father Noach, he said. I shall wander around the world to see what is left of it. Thou canst not go until I permit thee, said Noach. Hast thou forgotten our compact so soon? Thou must be my servant. I have work for thee. Now, giants are not fond of work, and Og, who was the father of all giants, was particularly lazy. He cared only to eat and sleep, but he knew he was in Noach's power, and he shed bitter tears when he saw the land appear again. Stop, commanded Noach. Dost thou wish to drown the world once more with thy big tears? So Og sat on the mountain and rocked from side to side, weeping silently to himself. He watched the animals lead the ark and had to do all the hard work when Noah's children built houses. Daily he complained that he was shrinking to the size of mortals. For Noah said that there was not too much food. One day, Noah said to him, "Come with me, Og. I'm going around the world. I am commanded to plant fruit and flowers and make the earth beautiful. I need thy help." For many days they wandered all over the earth, and Og was compelled to carry the heavy bags of seeds. The last thing Noah planted was a grapevine. "What is this, food or drink?" asked Og. "Both," replied Noah. "It can be eaten, or its juice made into wine," and as he planted it, he blessed the grapes. "Be thou," he said, "a plant pleasing to the eye, bearing fruit that will be food for the hungry, and a health-giving drink to the thirsty and sick." Og grunted. "I will offer up sacrifice to this wonderful fruit," he said. "May I not do so now that our labors are over?" Noah agreed. And the giant brought a sheep, a lion, a pig, and a monkey. First, he slaughtered the sheep, then the lion. "When a man shall taste but a few drops of wine," he said, "he shall be as harmless as a sheep. When he takes a little more, he shall be as strong as a lion." Then Og began to dance around the plant, and he killed the pig and the monkey. Noah was very much surprised. "I am giving thy descendants 2 extra blessings," said Og, chuckling. He rolled over and over on the ground in great glee and said, "When a man shall drink too much of the juice of the wine, then shall he become a beast like a pig. And if then he still continues to drink, he shall behave foolishly like a monkey." And that is why, to this day, too much wine makes a man silly. Og himself often drank too much, and many years afterward, when he was a servant to the patriarch Abraham, the latter scolded him until he became so frightened that he dropped a tooth. Abraham made an ivory chair for himself from the tooth. Afterwards, Og became king of Bashan. King of skunk. Bashan. Skunk in Hebrew is Bashan. King of skunk. Og the king of skunk. Okay, let's get on with the story, shall we? Okay, I just think that's funny. Afterwards, Og became king of Bashan, but he forgot his compact with Noah, and instead of helping the Israelites to obtain Canaan, he opposed them. "I will kill them all with one blow," he decreed. Exerting all his enormous strength, he uprooted a mountain, and raising it high above his head, he prepared to drop it on the camp of the Israelites and crush it. But a wonderful thing happened. The mountain was full of grasshoppers and ants, who had bored millions of tiny holes in it. When King Og raised the great mass, it crumbled in his hands and fell over his head and around his neck like a collar. He tried to pull it off, but his teeth became entangled in the mass. As he danced around in a rage and pain, Moshe, the leader of the Israelites, approached him. Moshe was a tiny man compared to Og. He was only 10 ells high, and he carried with him a sword of the same length. With a mighty effort, he jumped 10 ells into the air, and raising his sword, he managed to strike the giant on the ankle and wound him mortally. Thus, after many years, did the terrible giant of the flood perish from breaking his word to Father Noah. And there you have it. Okay. So, good story, huh? Okay, this next story, we are going to wait until not next week, because next week is Pesach. So when we return, we will read the story of the fairy princess from Egetz. I know Donald is going to like this, because this is going to be one of those cliffhangers. We aren't going to get through the whole story in one sitting. It may take us 2, maybe 3, but it's a wonderful story. So anyway, okay, so tomorrow night is the rabbis discuss whatever it is the rabbis want to discuss, and that is going to be the Bahir. And then on Wednesday night is the Torah study of the Parashah of the week. This week is Tzav. It is also this is Shabbat HaGadol, the Sabbath right before Pesach. Hope you're all ready for Pesach, huh? Okay. And then, of course, on Friday night is Kabbalat and Ma'ariv, the Shabbat service. And then on Shabbat morning at 10 a.m. is the Shachrit and Musaf. And then right back here, not on Monday, but the next time. And until then, we shall simply say Laila Tov and Happy Pesach.